Here is my communication project entitled The Golden Touch, the argument for informed selective breeding in the horse industry. In this presentation, I want to attempt to answer whether selective horse breeding in the 21st century is an advantage or a disadvantage. Having bred a few horses myself now, I found the wealth of information out there to be helpful but overwhelming at times. The main concepts I wish to explore will be around colour, but I also wish to touch on conformation and objectivity in breeding horses. Let's look at genetics. A horse has 32 pairs of chromosomes, so 64 in total. Each chromosome has many different genes it carries, and these genes can form different alleles, which are different variations of a gene. A horse inherits one allele from each parent, and these are passed down to offspring intact with no mixing or melding. An allele is a building block, a gene responsible for production of certain cells in the body. It is important to understand this, especially if we want to shape these in horses for function, looks, and profit. To understand genetics fully, we must also understand genotype and phenotype. Genotype refers to genetic material that makes up an individual, like a blueprint. The phenotype is the expressed trait, the ones we see. In the case of horses, this is coat colour, height, and shape, etc. Let's look at Mendelian inheritance. Mendelian inheritance was a concept first discovered by Austrian monk Gregor Mendel in 1865. He discovered what is now called the theory of heredity, which explains the biological way genetic material from parents is passed down to offspring. This was the start of the discovery of dominant and recessive genes. The alleles that were passed down had a way of sorting themselves out in their offspring. It had been assumed before then that genetics blended together, like red and white forming pink. This was proven not to be true. The alleles that formed could exist together, but one had to be dominant and the other recessive. In horses, when we talk about inherited colour genes, we talk about heterozygous and homozygous. Heterozygous means they have two different alleles and one is dominant, which is the expressed gene, and one is recessive, which is the hidden gene. A homozygous horse will have both genes the same, so it doesn't matter which one is dominant. This is my mare Evie. She is homozygous black, and that means she will always pass down a black gene, because both genes are black. However, if she was a heterozygous for black, she would still present as a black horse, but her offspring could be a different colour if she passed down the recessive gene instead of the dominant gene. Evie does have two sons. Son 1, born in 2014, is black, and son 2, born in 2016, is a buckskin. Here is a more detailed map showing basic Mendelian inheritance. Line 1 and 6 both show homozygous inheritance, as both alleles are the same. Lines 2 to 5 are heterozygous in some combination, as the alleles are different. Let's look at base colours. These are black, brown, bay, and chestnut. All of these equine coat colours are made up of variations of red and black. Different shades and colours on the hard parts of the horse and soft parts of the horse are all combinations of these two colours. Some breeds are bred to be one particular colour, i.e. Friesian horses are all bred to be black, Cleveland Bays are all bred to be bay, Haflingers are all bred to be chestnut, and so on. However, since chestnut is the most recessive gene, it can pop up in foals many generations down the track. Chestnut can only exist homozygously, so chestnut-bred horses will always produce chestnut. Dilute colours are a lot of fun. This is where a lot of breeders get excited. Breeding a dilute horse means breeding a highly desirable golden horse. Bay, to the left, if you breed it dilute, becomes a buckskin, to the right. Here we can see chestnut, on the left, becomes palomino, to the right. It is important to eliminate undesirable genes. Genes that cause sickness or inferior conformation like bad backs and twisted legs and other bodily weaknesses shouldn't be bred with. This is quite easy to do biologically when the defect is a dominant, but harder to do when the defect is a recessive. A recessive defect can also be masked for quite a few generations before it is expressed again. If it is not properly dealt with, it could become a dominant trait once again. Breeding objectives. In the article, an overview of breeding objectives for warm blood sport horses, it states that economic efficiency is a poor indicator of whether a person is doing a good job of breeding horses, and a more accurate measure would be desired gain, or what the breeder hopes to achieve. In my opinion, being able to selectively breed my horses is an advantage. I can control for major components such as colour, conformation and objectivity, meaning a successful horse that is biologically sound. I look forward to seeing what genetics can give us in the next 50 years in the horse industry.